There's no shortcuts. You know, when you want to get to the top of the stairs, you might be able to jump a step or two depending on how athletic you are. But you know what I mean? You still got to get to the top. And God has a way of, if you're kind of athletic, meaning you can rely on your own strength and power, you know, you jump 2 stairs, you know, and it's like you put, you know, it's like suddenly it gets farther away. You ever see a mountain, you go, oh, I can climb that mountain. It doesn't look so far away. I remember when I was a young man in the desert, and I was like, Dad, I'm gonna walk to the mountain today. He said, well, go ahead. It didn't look very far. You know, I'd be walking for 30 minutes. I'm like, boy, it hasn't gotten any closer. And I haven't even started to climb it. You see, with God, there are no shortcuts. It's a process. So you have to be faithful in little, and He'll make you, and then you'll be faithful in much. So we have phases in life. Dreamer versus a visionary. Faithful in little. Number 4. And this is where I read the Nehemiah passage. What does your heart break for? What is it passionate about? Here's how you begin to identify a little bit of what your dream and what God's called you to do. When I first started off, I was passionate about music. Now, in my passion and in my dream for music, it led me to somewhere else today, you understand. But it was the starting line. That's where the gun went, and I take off and I start to run. I just thought I was in a 40-yard dash, and I realized I was in a, you know, marathon, like Nialta runs. I didn't realize it was going to take so long to get where I wanted to get. So this is how you begin to identify your dream and your passion. Vision weaves 4 things into the fabric of our lives. See, when you get this passion and you start to identify it and you get this dream, these are the things that begin to happen. 1, you get passion, right? You get excited about something that is not, that perhaps could be. And you're one of the point people to help it come into existence. And you have to have a passion to do that. Motivation. You know, I love this thing about motivation. It makes the mundane matter. It makes the mundane matter. Because if you don't show up, something doesn't get done. And like Andy Stanley's quote, it says, vision gives significance to the otherwise meaningless details of our lives. See, our own vision and dream that God's given us begins to motivate us. And it matters that you get somewhere on time. Because if you don't, guess what? It won't happen. You know, the lady last night who's running Communities Child is a fantastic example of that. Having a dream and having a passion and having no money. And God made something happen. Vision gives us direction. It serves as a road map. See, when you don't have a vision, when you don't have a dream, you have no map. So you just kind of wander about, hoping that maybe somehow you'll stumble into something that you would say, yes, this is my dream and this is my passion. Now, that does happen, don't get me wrong. But when you get to that place and you kind of get stuck in the mud and God says, this is what I want you to do, many times we don't see that direction and we just try to pull ourselves out of the mud. What? So we can wander around again and get stuck again. But you see, as you get direction from the Lord, it simplifies our decisions. Because you start to say, maybe like Cheryl would say, am I supposed to work with the kids? Well, yeah, she is, right? So a lot of her decision making would come along the ways of, how do I grow being a children's director? How do I lead the parents and the people who are going to help out do this? How do I train them? How, you know, and now she has a whole list of questions that she can answer, but it pertains to a particular focus. Am I making sense? Okay. So when you have direction because God's beginning to give you a vision, you have focus. And that's so key. Because I meet so many people, and we just wander, and they're good-hearted people. You know, there's nothing wrong. We're trying to find our place, aren't we? But we wander because, you know, we don't really, well, I'll talk about that a little bit later. And so you have passion, motivation, direction, and basically purpose. Purpose. I mean, Rick Warren has written a couple books that have transformed the world. And it's, I mean, if you read this stuff, it's not super complicated. It basically says, do you want a purpose in your life? Yes. And then he gives you some tips and reading the book. Very, very good stuff. But it's the simplicity of finding your purpose that is what people are really, really latching on to and longing for. And just like us. So you're with me. Phases in life, a dreamer versus a visionary, being faithful in little. And what does your heart break for? When somebody comes up to me, and this happens a lot, somebody comes up to me and tells me a lot of things of what they do, you know, I just try to reflect, what are you passionate for? What are you really willing to give everything up for to do? And I can tell right away if they're just coming up with an idea, or if they're just talking, or if they're just dreaming, or if they're on just the beginning stage of what they want to find out. I won't give them much time. Want to know why? It's irrelevant what I think. What's relevant is what is your passion, what is your dream, what is God calling you to do. I have very little to do with that. So usually when people do that, they're wanting me to validate what they're not sure about. And I'm the wrong person. You got to get that from the big cheese upstairs. And I don't want to sit in his shoes. Because if I give you a little encouragement down the wrong direction, you're going to come back and blame me. Or you're going to come back and say, what are you going to do to help me get there? I'll say nothing. And you'll get mad at me. And you'll leave the church. So with Kaylin, I haven't done anything to help her get into the place where she's at, except tell me when you're done so I can buy the magazine. And I'll tell as many people as I can about it. Because she's had to deal with perseverance, and that's what a vision gives you is perseverance. I cannot, or none of your leaders can, or none of your friends can. Because you have to really believe that God has given you that which he's given you and no one else. Because you will suffer for what you're trying to do for God. And you know what? I won't be able to help. I mean, I can hold your hand, buy you some lunch, tell you not to use a Mac. Sorry. I always like to play with Kaylin like that.